Hello and welcome. Aquarister here, back with another video, and today we are looking at not one, but two different musket builds that I personally have been having a lot of fun with both PvE and PvP, but definitely more on the PvP side. Before we fully get into today's video, I do just want to say if this video helps you out, or if you just like it, please drop it a like. It really helps me out a lot. And if you'd like to see more content like this, including more builds and loot run videos, definitely subscribe to the channel so you know when those videos go up. I also stream throughout the week over on Twitch and on YouTube, so definitely stop by a stream, whichever platform you prefer. Stop on by, say hello, lurk, anything like that. We would love to have you. But let's get into today's video. All right, so it has been a bit since I actually have done a build video. I've been having a lot of fun with Musket, and like I said in the intro, I have two builds that I've been having a lot of fun with, kind of depending on what I'm doing and just kind of what I want for a secondary. But the first one we're going to look at is my Void Gauntlet Musket build. So this build is revolved around nature damage, but it is utilizing the Void Gauntlet to buff all of the musket damage that we can get. So to start off with the gear, all of these pieces are going to have nature harnessing, and most of them will have health. So those are the two perks that I went on my way to try to get. The third perk, I wasn't overly picky. So we do have a decent amount of thrust conditioning, as well as, I tried to get as much as I could for any defensive traits as well, or other defensive traits. So for our hat, as you can see, we had the nature harnessing, health, and thrust conditioning. I actually don't mind the thrust conditioning because I do get into, obviously, some range fights with either bows or with muskets, as well as any spears, rapiers, anything like that. It's going to apply towards that. On our chest piece, we have one stack of vigor, so then we do have those dot reductions. On our gloves, I have Crippling Powder Burn because I really wanted to have the slow, and then a stack of Refreshing, which, again, that was just kind of an extra one. I do wish I would have gotten health over the Refreshing, but it has worked just fine for now. The pants, same thing as the hat. Actually, we have Thrust Conditioning, Nature Harnessing, and Health, and this is where you can actually have this option, and I personally am probably going to change eventually to put on the Koya's knee guards. Now, I haven't leveled these up. I had just gotten them, so I didn't get them all leveled up and stuff for the video, but this is kind of my intention, is to eventually go towards this for this specific build. So this will be the artifact that I will run with my musket build with Void Gauntlet. And then for the boots, I have Health, Nature Harnessing, and actually Nullifying Oblivion. I found these on the market for like next to nothing. I was really surprised to see it. I think it's because people think the Nullifying Oblivion with Nature Harnessing wasn't good, but I absolutely love it. On top of that, I can actually utilize these with my healer build as well. If I end up going with Void Gauntlet for my healer build, then I have Nullifying Oblivion. I have all the perks that I really want outside of like Refreshing, but I do wear Nimble Coat with that. So really good boots for this build and actually my healer build. So on to the jewelry, and the jewelry I use for both builds, for both Void Gauntlet and Ice Gauntlet with the musket. So I do have this same amulet that I've been wearing since pretty much the start of the season, or the expansion actually, and it has Health, Divine, Thrust Protection. Works really well. I've been really happy with it. Obviously, you can swap out the Thrust Protection for Stam Recovery or for, a different type of protection. But for this build especially, it's been really nice because then any other muskets shooting me, I kind of reduce that amount of damage that I'm taking. For the ring, I do have my Hardy Nature Damage Purifying Heart Ring, which I did craft specifically for this build. Purifying Heart is not the best, but it's not terrible because you do get your heart rune back pretty quickly with this build. So then when you get all those debuffs and all that, you can just quick pop that. Your heart rune doesn't always have to be for attacking or anything like that. Even though I'm using Bile Bomb, I can actually utilize that just to remove some debuffs. So it is actually more useful than I originally thought it was going to be for this build. And then for my earring, the earring I have is Healthy Toast, Refreshing Toast, Nimble, Full In. I'm really happy with this. The Healthy Toast has actually saved my life a couple times because I get that just small burst of HP by drinking a mana pot, and I have plenty of mana pots, so I don't mind just kind of burning through those just for a little bump in HP. And then I always like Refreshing Toast and Nimble. The potion cooldown's great, and then obviously 10% stam regen is always nice to have. Now, I will say for the ring on the Ice Gauntlet build, we obviously are not wearing nature damage. I do have a different ice damage ring that we will go over on that build. For Heart Rune with this one, because I like to go with all the nature damage, I kind of stick with it, go with Bile Bomb. Bile Bomb's still one of my favorite, if not my favorite Heart Rune. It's just very, very useful for both PvP, PvE. It actually does a lot of damage over time. It just doesn't seem like it because it's just, tick damage. But you do inflict a slow, exhaust, as well as the disease. So for PvP, it's fantastic. For PvE, it's just a really big AoE damage area. So really, really nice. On to the weapons. As you can see here, we are using Life Taker. Life Taker is the artifact for the Void Gauntlet. And then I put Slowing Tether because I always use Tether with this build. I think Tether is fantastic with this. So I go with Slowing Tether. You get a 42% slow. It works really, really well. For the Musket, we went with the Syncretic, which originally comes with Arboreal Attunement and Keenly Jagged. And then I chose to go with Enchanted. I'm really happy with it. You could definitely swap out if you have a different perk that you think would be better for your build. Definitely try out some different ones. But Enchanted just has worked the best for me, and I'm really, really happy with it. I then put the Amber Rune Glass in there with the nature damage, so we do get those extra ticks, plus we have 50% of that damage converting. So overall, we have a lot of nature damage with this build. We have the 5 stacks of nature harnessing, plus 1 stack of nature damage. So that's where when I replace these pants eventually, or if I end up doing that, then we're just going to end up, swapping out. We won't have 1 stack of nature harnessing. It's only 2%, but we will have more survivability against other ranged attacks. So I think it's a good trade-off. Definitely, if you feel like you don't need the extra defense of, the knee guards or another artifact, then definitely you can just go with the full nature harnessing like this. But I don't want to put nature harnessing in these pants because it is going to lock me into that specific damage type then. All right, on to the ice build. I'm not actually going to put it on right now. We're just going to hover over. But what I did with my ice build is this is actually my light mage build. Because I'm running 150 int, I'm able to get away with running extra int on the build. So I am running the Grey Wizard's hat. The Grey Wizard's hat I will always run with Ice Gauntlet, so that's why I put Ice Harnessing on this artifact. But it does give me the 100% max mana. Plus, I get extra int, so I actually am getting extra attribute points by utilizing this hat. You end up getting, an extra 13 intelligence on it. So it does give me a little extra damage boost just by having a little extra attributes there. On our chest piece, it's the same, like I said, with the mage build. We have the health, ice harnessing, enchanted ward. The enchanted ward is really nice, and if you can afford to get it or can get it on your armor, it is not bad by any means to have. It's very, very useful. I still really like elemental aversion though. With all the elemental range attacks and stuff that we've been seeing lately, I think it does work really well. And for mutateds and stuff, there's some of that, ranged elemental attacks that might hit you, so it is really useful. But enchanted ward honestly is fantastic. For the gloves, now I just crafted these because I needed crippling powder burn, ice harnessing gloves. Empowering breaker is not what I'd go with. I again would try to go with health if possible, but any really third perk other than empowering breaker would have probably been fine with me. But these are just temporary. I just crafted these up so I could have the 2 perks on a piece of armor for that. For the pants, we have our Pylon Burst Physical Version Ice Harnessing Pants. Physical version, obviously not bad. Health would have been a little bit more preferred, but again, physical version still very, very good. And then for the boots, we have the Admiral's Peg, which is a named item through mutateds, and that has health, ice harnessing, elemental version. This is like ideally what I want for most of my pieces of armor that do not have the weapon perks on them. So this is perfect. I don't need another pair of boots, light boots for ice harnessing. These will just kind of carry over, and since they're magnify, I can kind of apply towards any of those builds. For the jewelry, the amulet and the earring are going to be the same as the other build. The ring, though, we have a hardy ice damage crippling. This is my best in slot ring for what I want out of my ice gauntlet. So I'm really, really happy. If you can get a ring like this, I do highly recommend it, because then with the powder burn, the crippling powder burn, it's a 27% slow for 5 seconds. You get an extra 31% of duration on that. So it is really, really nice, especially if they're not running anything to decrease that timing, then you are good to go. And then for the weapons, we are going with the new Deep Freeze artifact. So with the Chilling End, Frozen, rooted, or chilled enemies take 15% additional damage on both weapons. So essentially what you're wanting to do is throw that ice storm over someone and just start popping them, because you will get that extra 15% damage on both of the weapons. And then if you also have your pylon out, that also is getting increased damage. Pylon will not apply the chill though. We'll go over that when we go over the mastery. But overall, I'm really, really happy with the new Ice Gauntlet. And then for our musket, we went with the Soul Shroud. So the Soul Shroud came with Vorpal and Keenly Jagged, and then I put Frost Attunement on there, as well as the Ice Gem with the Rune Glass in it. I'm happy with it. Obviously, Vorpal isn't necessarily my first pick, but it is very, very close. So the Soul Shroud Musket is going to come with Vorpal and Keenly Jagged, and then you can put the Frost Attunement on it if you'd like, or whatever you'd like for the attunement or third perk. So really, really good musket. I'm happy with it. It's working really, really well for me. And then for Heart Rune, I currently have Cannon Blast, but you can run kind of whatever you want. Heart Runes are up to you as to how you want the Heart Rune to work for you. All right, so that's all the gear that I've been running. Pretty straightforward, health, harnessing, a few weapon perks, and then a bunch of ranged defense perks. Just because you are going to get in some fights with some other bows and some other range, or maybe a mage, and you want to be able to protect yourself as best as possible. But next, we are going to go look at the attribute layout as well as the mastery for the various weapons. All right, taking a look at the attributes here, it is a pretty straightforward layout. I always go with the 100 con, 150 in, everything else into dex, and then I take a 48 dex food. So that is kind of the layout that I go with, and it's worked really, really well. Now with the Ice Gauntlet build, what you can do if you like to go a little bit heavier into the Ice Gauntlet side of it, you could do 200 to maybe even 250. The 250 would be actually pretty good if you're playing around that slow a lot. So I might even start trying some 250 in with my Ice Gauntlet build specifically. The Void build, I do like to still go with the really high dex. For the Ice Gauntlet, if you want that extra duration to apply damage over time effects, you could do that, so then your powder burn actually has a longer duration to it. But again, I ran the 150 in with my Ice Gauntlet build with the musket, and it's worked just fine. But if you are finding that you're a little bit heavier into the Ice Gauntlet, I would maybe just say try doing 200, 250 and see if you like it any better. I might even continue to play around with it, but again, for Void, I stick with the 150 int, everything else into dex. All right, next, let's take a look at the weapon mastery. And what we're going to do is start with the musket. The musket build is the same across both builds. So we're going to start with the musket so you guys can see that right away, and then we'll go through Void and then Ice. So with the musket, this is the build that I'm going with. Now, I've tried out some different variations of it, and this is what I ended up landing on, and it's worked really well. But there are definitely some perks that you can move around if you feel like you could use it, or if it would better benefit your playstyle or anything like that. Definitely take this as just kind of a place to start, and then just like move some perks around and play around with it and see what really works best for you. But as you can see, the three abilities we go with are Sticky Bomb, Power Shot, and the Powder Burn, and it works really, really well for me. I was a little hesitant on Sticky Bomb, but it's worked awesome. I used to run Stopping Power, and Stopping Power is another really great ability, and you can definitely go that route. But Sticky Bomb, I've really, really liked for both PvE and PvP. It's been very useful. As for the passive perks, I do go with Empowering Headshot, so we get the 10% empowerment bonus. We go with Optimal Range, so then we deal 10% increased base damage to targets 20 meters or further away from the player, and then 5% to targets within 50 meters. Heightened Precision, so successful hits with a musket grants a stackable 2.5 damage, so pretty much every single time we're landing a hit, we will be able to get that extra stack of damage. So just more damage stacking. And then we do go with Deadeye on the left tree. So 15% more damage to all headshots. And then if we hit multiple targets when we get a headshot, then the next shot within 3 seconds inflicts a bleed to all the targets that the shot passes through, dealing 15% weapon damage every second for 5 seconds. That's a good amount of damage to a lot of people that you're able to apply quite quickly, actually. So they've done a great job with changing the musket. It's obviously projectile for those who did not know that, but it is some really good changes. It just takes a little bit of time to adjust to the new play style of playing musket. Fortunately for me, the kind of new play style of musket, as far as not being able to sit far back, It works great because I used to play kind of like a trapper style. I'd, use powder burn, I'd use power shot, and then at the time I was using stopping power when it was hit scan. And that was the build that I played. So I'm really not playing any different than I used to play Musket. It's just a little bit different in terms of like what I'm able to do because the bullets penetrate and all of that. So play style is very, very similar to how I used to play Musket. It's just the abilities and what the Musket can do are different now. So on the Trapper tree, I have the Salt on the Wound, so deal 10% increased damage to targets below 30. So if they're below 30%, you're going to do a nice chunk of damage, and especially if you're the one who got them to 30, then you have some of the damage stacking from your heightened precision. And then, if you land a headshot, you get that empowerment. So there's a lot of damage stacks available, and then once they're below 30, you're doing even more. I do go with weakened defense, so increases the stam damage from standard shot dealt to enemies blocking with shields by 50%, so we can kind of help with the tanks and breaking their defense. And then increases armor pen against targets that are not blocking with a shield by 10%. So it's just 10% armor pen all the time. Empowering weakness, hitting a target with an active debuff grants empower, increasing your damage by 5% for 5 seconds. Now, this is definitely one that you don't have to go with. It is a 5% empowerment, and as you can see, we have a lot of different damage buffs for various different reasons. You can definitely swap some of these out if you feel like maybe you could utilize like quick load a little bit more, because quick load definitely is pretty good, but for me, I'm swapping weapons, rolling, dodging, all this stuff, and I didn't find that it was as useful for me personally, but I do know that some people have liked it, so definitely try it out if you think it might work for you. Tactical reload is one that I will always have with every single musket build. It's just a dodge reload. This is a 100% necessary perk. Even if you have a completely different build, this is the one perk that I think every single musket player needs to have. And then the last perk that we have for the musket is kick them when they're down. Deal 10% extra damage to targets with an active crowd control status effects, so slow, root, or stun. Well, we have crippling powder burn, so that applies a slow, and then we get that 10% extra damage against those slowed targets. So that's where the crippling powder burn is really nice. That's also where slowing tether or the ice gauntlet. So all of our secondary abilities can help trigger this to go. So for my builds, I will always have this on there. All right, on to the Void. So this is kind of my go-to Void Gauntlet build now, that isn't a healer build at least. And so we go Oblivion, Tether, Orb, and then as far as the passives, honestly, for the passive abilities, you don't need to go too crazy with this. Play with whatever you feel is right. I always go with Glimpse of the Void though, because you get an instant cooldown from it. Those who have seen me play Mage in the past know that Glimpse of the Void is kind of my favorite go-to for, the ultimate perks here. But for the passive, definitely just play around, see what works for you. It's not too specific. You can kind of copy what I have here if you want, but the Void Gauntlet is so secondary for me that I'm just using Tether or Oblivion, and then it's all to just buff my musket. So I don't really care as much about buffing the Void Gauntlet itself as I do about buffing the Void or the musket. So play around with your passive perks, see what it works for you. I'm not going to go too in depth because again, my passive perks will hop around a little bit because I mainly just care about the abilities at this point. All right, on to the Ice Gauntlet. Now, this Ice Gauntlet build is a little bit funky, a little bit different from what I've done in the past, but it works fantastic. So what we do is we go for the ultimate chill because that is how we apply chill to the targets, which then gives us that 15% increased damage because of the artifact. And then we also get a 25% increased damage to chill targets with our Ice Gauntlet as well. And Pylon will not apply chill, but Ice Storm and Ice Shower will. So that's why we want to make sure we still have the two abilities that will apply the chill. And then the Pylon is just to kind of help back us up, maybe distract an enemy, maybe put it around a corner in case someone pushes you. So then they have to decide, are they going to push you? Are they going to push the Pylon? Either way, they're going to get hit by something. So in order to get Ultimate Chill, you do have to do all of the passive perks with Ice Storm. That is the only way to be able to get this if you're not running Spike or Wind Chill. Really, really good, passive perks from Ice Gauntlet. You have the rooting with the heavy attacks. You get a little extra crit chance, all of that. And then on the right side for the Ice Shower, we do go all the way down to make sure we do get that 10% rend. And then with Pylon, I always make sure I get down to Pylon Dodge, because with Pylon Dodge, you can actually trigger Pylon to attack. And a lot of people might not know this, but yes, it will increase the rate of fire, but you can actually trigger it to attack with your dodges. So I'll show you actually after we get through the mastery here, I'm going to show you a little overview. I haven't done that in a build video in a bit, but I'm going to show you some of the combos of how you can stack damage and some of the little tricks that I use to get better with these builds. But that's what we're looking at for the Ice Gauntlet build. It's worked great for me. I've been really, really happy with it. It works great for mobs or for any form of group fighting because you do have a lot of AoE and then that pylon's just kind of extra DPS on top of that. All right, so to get us started, we are going to look at the Void Gauntlet with the Musket, and I'm just going to show you really quick what you can do for stacking the damage. Obviously, we know we have a lot of empowerment stacks that we can get within the Musket, but then when we add the Void on top of that, we can reach that empowerment cap, or at least very close to it. So we're just first going to throw a Sticky Bomb, and you're going to see the damage output from that. It was a crit, 37, 4,400, give or take. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to do a tether followed by an oblivion and then a circle. All right, then a sticky bomb. So then we have that. And now we've stacked that damage into the sticky bomb. And as you can see, non-crit, it was 3,600 4K. That was without any crits, but it was almost as much as the one that did crit. So it's a pretty big difference for the damage output. And then what I like to do, we're going to get our cooldowns back here. Let's say you're fighting a big group of mobs, or it's an OPR, a clump fight on, mid or something like that. What I'll try to do is if I can get a tether through the doorway or on someone up top, I'll do that, drop circle, throw sticky, pop, pop. So then by the time that blows up, you've already gotten 2 shots into whoever it is or the clump, and then that explosion should hopefully maybe finish someone off or at least do enough damage that the rest of the team can kind of capitalize on that. So that's how I've been stacking the damage. Obviously, there's other damage stacks just by slowing enemies, by shooting in the head, just by shooting them in general if they have a debuff. So there's various different ways to stack that damage. With the Void, I always go with it. I try to get the tether, circle. If I can't get the tether, then I just go for circle. I can throw the sticky bomb. I can, kind of do whatever like that. And then it still blows up. You still get a nice buff from it. Plus, you're still stacking that damage on top of it. So that's how I've been doing it with the Void. It's been working really, really well. You can get a lot of pretty big numbers in OPR. I would say on average, if I have the Oblivion out, I can get power shots to be hitting for 5K on average. Definitely can go up or down depending on their resistance and all that. But some pretty big power shots. Really, really nice to be able to land them. And it feels great when you do. Next, let's take a look at the Ice Gauntlet build. I'm not going to actually respec my attributes, so don't pay attention to that. We're just going to go over the build itself. So with Ice Gauntlet, like we were saying with the pylon, I'm going to show you how the pylon works. So with this, you can see when we dodge, it increases that attack speed. And if you time it right when it shoots, you can actually shoot twice. It takes a little bit of practice, and obviously you don't want to stam yourself out. But you want to try to time that. So if you're like running away, we'll get the cooldown back. But let's say you are shooting with your musket, right? And someone's going to be pushing you, melee, anything like that. What I'm usually going to do is set my pylon down, dodge away. You get those quick couple shots. If they keep pushing you, I'm just going to leave my Ice Gauntlet out so I can control my pylon. Because the more dodges they force out of me, the more shots they're going to potentially take, meaning they're just going to end up taking more and more damage, and I'm just going to be running around. Now, if they then turn towards the pylon, then that's when I can drop the Ice Storm, followed by my shots. And then that's when I can apply all that slow and either escape or try to push them and just get them. So that's where I like to play Ice Gauntlet sometimes. And again, for clump PvP or for mobs and stuff, it works great. So the Ice Gauntlet, I really do like for PvE a little bit more just because I can help out more with the Ice Gauntlet itself. And then the Musket, I almost treat the Musket like it's a fire staff in a sense. So I apply a lot of those debuffs, burn through my cooldowns, switch back to Ice, try to get my AoEs out. By that time, I get my other cooldowns back for a Musket. And I just keep alternating. So I play it almost like I am a mage. I'm a mage with a gun, essentially. So that's how I like to play it. Now, the other trick I'm going to show you guys is how to not get caught out reloading. Now, I am I'll admit I'm not the best about taking my own advice on this. But a lot of times what you're going to want to do is get that dodge reload, right? So shot, reload into a power shot, follow that up, and you get a nice big second shot. The trouble is let's say you're fairly close like this and you do that, someone is going to catch you, right? Because in that time it takes you, we'll show you the time, pop, pop, reload, and then you can run. In that time, a lot of people get caught or shot or something like that. So I'm going to show you what you can do to help avoid that. And this is something that as I've gotten better with it, my survivability has definitely gone up. So what you can do to help avoid some of the reload slowing is shot, shot, roll into a swap, because then your momentum keeps going. So we'll do this, shot, shot, into ice. There's just a very, very slight delay, but your momentum continues going. And if you have the ice, then you can lay down an ice shower as well, and that definitely helps. So shot, shot, ice shower through. But I have found that even just shooting into a roll swap does seem to help, because if you get caught out reloading as a musket, it can be really, really tricky. Now, the other thing that you can do is if you are reloading, is reload left to right, right? So instead of just standing there reloading or pressing W or S, strafe left and right, and you will at least make it a little bit harder to get hit. Obviously, you're still pretty slow, so it's not too bad for someone to be able to get you. But if you are going to be leaving the musket out while you're reloading, try to strafe left and right as opposed to going forward or backwards or just standing still. The other thing you can do is play corners. So you can shoot during reload, shoot, reload, shoot, miss, reload, shoot, reload. And you can just keep peeking corners like that. You can try dodging out, dodge back. If you have safety of a corner, you can kind of utilize the double roll and be just fine. Stuff like that. So you definitely can play around with it and get past the whole reload. And that's why I don't go with the faster reload perk, because I just end up switching weapons or I end up, playing corners and stuff. So I haven't found it's as useful for me, but you could definitely pump out probably more damage utilizing that. So you may want to try that perk out for yourself. But for me, I just didn't find it was helping me quite as much. All right, so that is kind of the overview of the builds, how I stack the damage, how I utilize the builds. Next, I have some gameplay of these builds in action, mostly the Void Gauntlet, but some of the Ice Gauntlet as well. In the clips, though, the Ice Gauntlet is a little bit older build, so you're going to notice that the circle, the frosted area around my pylon, is a bit larger. It is a different build slightly, so do take this newer version in mind, but the clips for the Ice Gauntlet are going to be of the older one. All right, that is going to do it for today's video. So thank you very much for watching. I do appreciate it. Uh, Musket is a weapon that I didn't think I was going to like this season or since the expansion. It changed it, but the more I've been using it and now that I have some proper builds for it, it is very, very fun. I enjoy it. I've been enjoying it actually a lot in PvE as well as PvP. So for the first time, I'm actually enjoying Musket PvE, though. It's kind of crazy because before I would never play it PvE. I just did not care for it. But the changes they made, I think, were fantastic for it. I think it's in a pretty good spot right now, personally. But I've had a lot of fun. So hopefully this build helps you guys out to figure out if you like Musket or not. And if you do, definitely let me know in the comments. If you've been enjoying Musket or why you do or don't like it. I know it can be a conflicting weapon for some, especially with its previous history, but I think currently it's definitely doing better than it once was. But that is going to do it for today's video. So until next time, I'll see you guys later.